Hear us in the room?
Rose, yes.
She did.
Got a thumbs up.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. Thanks you all for being here. Welcome to Tides and Talks. This is our first talk of the year, and we're very excited to be back for another series. This one actually got picked up quite a bit. You may have seen it on the news, and that's why you're here, or you just really love Florida and you want to learn about plants. But today we have Lauren Goldsby with us, and we're going to learn about Florida-friendly landscaping. So, cool. All right. Good stuff.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm so excited to talk to y'all. I've talked to some familiar faces, some new faces. I'm happy to see you guys here and to not be seeing, but to know you are here on Zoom. It's cold outside, so thanks for coming out. And it's only going to start getting colder as the sun goes away. That's kind of an overarching theme of this presentation. And yeah, and I can project more. Thank you for saying that. That being said, I'm a casual presenter. If y'all have any questions, raise your hand in the middle. Let me know. I am happy to continue to build this presentation on what is useful for the people in this room right now. It's cold outside, but like last weekend, I was sweating in shorts at the farmer's market. And I feel that, my closet feels that, my bank account might feel that sometimes, but plants are also feeling it too. The animals around us feel it. Like if you have a dog that needs to go outside and every day at 8 o'clock, they're ready to go to the bathroom. Have you noticed that when it's colder outside, they kind of like get up slow, especially as they get older. They don't want to be outside just like we don't. So yeah, animals are like humans. That makes sense. That's linear to me. But until I really understood at the nitty-gritty level what is going on inside a plant, I didn't think about plants like this. A plant's in your ecosystem, a plant's in your ecosystem, but a plant's also bought at the store, and a plant is cut and put into a flower vase and used as a tool in a different way than we use animals as a tool. So I just kind of want to frame this presentation as we're going to be thinking about plants as the basic level biological system that they are. And moving up from that, we're going to be considering your yards, your homes, where you live, and really what you interact with. When I say our yards and our homes in Panama City, I'm also talking about our groundwater. We're talking about groundwater and freshwater here in Panama City. We're really, really lucky to live where we live. Some of us live here because we're lucky to be born nearby. We're lucky to want to retire and be here. But some of us actually are here because we're really into the ecosystems around us, not only learning about them, but learning about how to protect them. I think everyone in this room is interested in those common guidelines, if you will, without maybe realizing that. So as we move through these, your yard is an ecosystem. Even if it's grass that is sprayed every single week with a different chemical, still interacting with our larger ecosystems. The additions, the subtractions, that's kind of our overarching themes here. But as we go through, I'm going to move pretty quick through some of these slides. There's a lot of material, but this isn't something that you're going to memorize. This isn't a presentation you're going to come out of with a list of plants to put into your yard. Because if I told you that, some of it would fail. Some of it would do well. Like I could think of a couple that everyone could probably put some frog fruit in their yard, and it's a nice little native ground cover, and it would probably spread. But it snowed last January, and it gets to be very hot in the summer. Our ecosystem swings a lot. So we're going to hit the middle lines, and we're going to learn how to move through those swings rather than being controlled by them, rather than being affected by them. I want each and every one of you to be able to go home tonight and not have to put anything inside your house because of fear that you're going to lose it. Not lose your mind, maybe, but lose the plant that you're keeping, but also sometimes lose your mind. That is some of the most stressful times, covering up your plants right before the freeze, because you just really wanted to save your giant philodendron that's outside. Your giant philodendron might not be a plant that can grow outside all the time here without extra work. So all that being said, what is Florida-friendly landscaping? It has a couple different definitions, but legally, it's actually written into the Florida statute. And that started in 1993, really with the main goal to be conserving our water. It's so special that we're here in this Tides and Talks presentation to talk about water. We're going to talk about plants a lot again after this, but we're going to end on water again. Ecosystems tied together. When we think about these, again, they're not rules. You say statute. Lots of people want this to mean, what is a rule that I have to follow, something I need to do. It more so means that the rule is being that your landscape can be used to conserve water, can be used to, your landscape is adaptable to those conditions rather than being in a set line. Bay County by area is 27% water. It's a fairly large amount. When we think about our friends in Denver, Colorado, I was talking to my friend who lives in Denver, Colorado. They're not necessarily having to consider as many of how their actions impact their water resources because they're further away from it. There's less of it in that area. We're lucky to have all that water, but it kind of, I think someone very famous said, with great power comes great responsibility. When you're driving through and you're seeing your water, these are your responsibilities that come with it. When it rains, no matter what, pesticides, fertilizers, your car exhaust, that rainwater is going to move things with it. We've all seen the power of water and how quickly it can move. In addition to that, 60% of the water that we're putting out in Florida is actually going to be tied to our lawn and landscape irrigation. 60% of the water we use, that is a lot of water. We have a lot of people that live in Florida. More water is going to keeping our landscapes alive than keeping people alive. Whoa, that is mind-blowing. With great power comes great responsibility. Your yard has the ability to kind of be part of this, act as a little filter. I'm going to build on this more, but at this level, we're kind of thinking of it like a filter. But your yard's going to have different goals. I'm also realizing that while not everyone in this room wants perfect grass and perfect shrubs, some people want plants that maybe block their neighbors from their view or block your view from your neighbors. Yeah, we get calls like that all the time at the extension office. Let us know. I've got a list for you. But again, that list is specific to your need. Plants are not a one-size-fits-all anything. Almost nothing is in our life. So there's a lot of goals that you might already have. But I also want to frame our principles of Florida-friendly landscaping as goals more than principles. When I hear the word principle, it like kind of makes me sweat. It makes me feel like, did I do something wrong? Did I do something right? How do I make sure I do it right? That's going to bring us to our first one, right plant, right place. It's one of our favorite phrases to say, but it also applies to a lot of what we're talking about. What does it mean? When we put a plant somewhere, I mean, what does it mean? It's the whole conversation. When we put a plant somewhere, it needs to be right for the plant. Me and George were talking at the beginning of this presentation about his oak tree and how that's affecting the grass underneath. And it does. Grass needs a lot of sun to grow. Sometimes instead of fighting an area to make the grass grow, we lean into it. We say, hey, the tree is providing shade. It's soaking up some water. I'm okay with that. It's more of a priority for me to continue the health of my tree than to think that it needs to have grass or think that it needs to have a shrub or something else growing. We tend to want to overlove our landscape rather than give it maybe what it's telling us it needs. So again, I'm going to move through some, well, I'm going to stay here because I can't use my hands there. I'm going to use this, will they be able to see the mouse on Zoom? Okay, I'll use the mouse here and y'all can see it on there. Easy. There's a lot of different hardiness zones that we can have. I'm not going to tell you to commit it to memory because it changes. It recently changed. You could look up your hardiness zone, and depending on what year the article was published you're reading, it could be wrong. So look it up as you go. Check the plant that you're wanting to grow and see if it works with your hardiness area, and check it for every single plant you've ever thought of. Wow, that would take me 7 years. Instead of doing that, you can use the Florida Friendly Landscaping tool. This is the QR code for it. You can take a picture of it and look at it later, or if you ever reach out, we can always share this with you, but these are easy to find online. This is an app you can download. And basically, you can put in parameters of an area or of your whole yard, as wide or as specific as you want, and then say, show me the plants that I could potentially grow here. It's going to show you them. It's going to show you pictures of them. It's going to tell you some conditions about them. And what are these things you can put in? Let's say your yard floods every time it rains. Every single time you've got sitting water. You can put in that you want a plant that is tolerant of moist conditions. A lot of our rain garden plants are going to be this. Things like that are kind of how you're setting your plant choices. And then design. That's in itself a whole nother world. People get whole entire degrees and licenses to do design. My sisters think that I went to school twice to learn how to plant their plants, and I'm really good at it. I can make a gorgeous container garden, but I'm not classically trained in it, especially not in a way to teach it. What this does, this other app and tools and handouts, and kind of it meets you at the level that you'd like to take it in, can either set an exact design that you can follow or give you some parameters to lean on, give you some more things to go. This in itself is a whole community presentation. We could go for a long time, but my goal here with y'all today is to tell you as many about the parts as I can to get you interested, to get you to come to our next class we do at the extension office, to be thinking about your water. Those are our goals. So if we move faster through the next pieces, that is why. Just want to be aware of our time. But some more truths about FFL to kind of set as we're going. Oh,
There's some pop-up.
it's Kitty. She's one of our Master Gardener volunteers. Happy to let her in. Thank you for showing me that, though. I completely blocked it out. That's how much I care about FFL landscape design, y'all. It's gonna be, there's a wide range. There is more wild coreopsis native plants. Some of those plants look wild, doesn't mean they're native. You know, you can use that app to check those things. Just because a plant is native does not mean we have to grow it. Or I guess I'll reverse that. Just because a plant isn't native doesn't mean you can't grow it in your yard and still consider your yard a Florida friendly landscape. But using those principles to kind of guide how you select it. We don't want to fill our yard with invasive species. You know, that's a hard no, but there's some wiggle room in between. So based on your aesthetic goals, you can choose something that's more formal, looks more like a traditional yard, a design yard, or you can have something that's a little bit more wild. Both of those things can exist, and they can still exist in an organized community. But what FFL, what Florida Friendly Landscaping doesn't mean is that we let all of the weeds grow big, all of the Biden's alba, even if it's a native plant. That's what I mean by that. It can still be wild. Florida Friendly Landscaping doesn't mean that the weeds grow up to your knees and we're worried about snakes walking through them, because that doesn't really help me in my yard and the goals that I have for it. There we go. Okay. Second principle, water efficiently. Forgot we're talking about water here too. We'll talk about water again all the way at the end. This water is when we're going to be thinking about how we're putting out water in our landscape. Who puts out water in their landscape versus lets the rain does it. Does anyone have an irrigation system or use sprinklers? Okay, some of us letting the rain do it. I have a little bit of both. I don't have anything on a timer right now, but I definitely use the tools to help me not have to stand out with a hose all day long. Some of the best practices you can apply to that are keeping your water close to the ground. So if we're using a sprinkler, you've all driven by and seen it. Water is going to go all the way across. Does someone have a phone maybe going off?
Yes, I'll turn it off.
Oh, thank you. So the sprinkler system that we see, I've actually seen on the Weather Channel during hurricane season, in the middle of a hurricane, Jim Cantori, someone's sprinkler system going off behind him. That is awful. That hurts my heart. I'd love us to not use automatic timers no matter what, because our weather's going to change. However, when we use the micro irrigation, when we use those timing systems in the best way possible, it's actually going to allow us to reduce our water overall. So not spraying overhead, keeping it close to the plant is actually going to do two things for you. You're going to use less water. You're going to use that water more efficiently. But you're also going to reduce your disease pressures. So it's like win, 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 win. We could talk all day about these practices being sustainable, and that's really important. But what I want to also make sure I nail down is that these are the best ways to grow healthy plants. By not forcing your plant into a box, your landscape into something it doesn't exist, or that's something that it's not, you keep a healthy plant. And keeping a healthy plant means that you have to call someone to spray for bugs less. Maybe the bugs take care of themselves, that sort of thing. But watering, what are we thinking about there? Keeping it low to the ground is ideal. When I say micro irrigation, that just means it's small. Doesn't mean you're putting out a ton less water. You do end up doing that, but the goal is to keep it low to the ground, whether that be drip tube, a small little sprinkler, or really drip tubes, and those are going to be the best homeowner options. If you go more of a different professional landscape, they might have some more options in their artillery. But without learning a new system, without becoming another trade, we've already thought about being design traders. We could learn how to install irrigation systems. That's tough work. It is okay when you do it and set it up once, but sometimes they fail. It's nice to not rely on those technologies. Something like mulch doesn't really fail. You put it out, you think about where you need it, and what it's doing for you is just kind of keeping your landscape tucked in, if you will. It's like a little blanket. It's going to hold in the moisture a little bit more. More water being held in means you lose less to the environment, which means you need to put out water less frequently. Additionally, it's going to put down a really nice fat layer on top of your weeds. So that is even less of something that you have to ask someone to help you with. So mulch is kind of going to have a win-win there in terms of watering practices and weed management. We've been talking about this. You're thinking about the weather. You don't just trust that every day your yard needs 45 minutes of water, because I promise you it doesn't. But based on the calls we get a lot and the conversations we have with people, a lot of people want to make sure their yard is healthy and they keep watering. But we get a lot of rain just at different times of the year. So pay attention to what time of the year it is. If we're in a drought, a lot of those tools can help you think about that. Fertilizer is a helpful one. What is a fertilizer? Something that makes a plant grow. It's like the most simple way to talk about it, the most simple way to think about it. Is it necessary? For a lot of plants, yes. For plants that are putting out a lot of energy, like your tomatoes that are producing a lot of fruit, they're going to need more fertilizer. When you take things off your plant, you're kind of taking those nutrients. You're eating them. They're nutritious for your body. We need to give the plant the ability to replace those and make more, or else it'll just kind of sit. But when we think about, for example, our houseplants, they don't really need that much fertilizer. They're not doing that much for us. I'm not taking things off of them very frequently. That's kind of the way I want you to think about the nutrient needs of your landscape, how you could think about what it needs. Your soil is that foundation. If you're growing in strict sand, the water's going to move through it a lot faster, right? Everyone's experienced that. You turn on your sprinkler. I mean, when I moved to Panama City, I learned how to garden in the sand. I thought I was gardening in the sand because I'm from Florida. No, I learned how to garden in the sand once I got to Panama City. Just like the water moves quickly through your sand, so does fertilizer, so does nutrients. It's another one of our with great powers comes great responsibility. We love our white quartz sand, but we've got to be aware of how quickly things can move through it. A lot of the new developments, if you're living somewhere that had a lot of construction or recent development in the area, consider that native soil is going to be different. You're no longer on Florida native soil if fill dirt was brought in. That doesn't mean that you're clueless about what's going on in our soil, because even though we assume we have native soil, things change your soil over time. The compost, the decomposition, what we take out of it. So that's why you're going to hear us at the Extension office over and over and over again. Probably the first question we ask, have you done a soil test? Have you seen what's there? And that's, excuse me, that is, that's because that frames all of the answers we're going to give you. If it was easy to just know exactly what to do in the yard, I promise you, someone would be selling it to you fast. And they can sell you parts of it, and that's awesome. We need tools and ways to be able to use it. We don't have time to learn another trade. We're already landscape design irrigators. So getting this information helps you make some of those filters, like in the plant app we talked about at the beginning. One of the most important things is pH. And pH is not something you can see with your eyes. Nutrient deficiencies, you can sometimes see with your eyes, especially if you've trained yourself and you've worked with the crop, but it's incredibly crop specific and nutrient specific. pH is even harder to see because some plants show symptoms of stress, but others will just kind of sit again. They won't grow, they won't do anything. They will get diseases more. They will get impacted more. It's like you when you're stressed out, you get sick. That's what your plant is doing. If it's growing in a pH environment that is not what it's used to, what it's meant for, what it grew to be. Blueberries are going to be my example of that. Has anyone here ever grown a blueberry? Has anyone had like a good harvest from it? Like a little bit of a harvest? Just a little bit. You've seen what I'm talking about potentially when a plant sits. It's one of two things if your blueberries are sitting. It's that the pH is wrong or that they're not getting enough nutrients. We can talk blueberries later. Blueberries have weird nutrient requirements. They like nitrate forms of, they like ammonium forms of nitrogen, not nitrate. So that can be one of the things that causes it, but specifically pH causing something to slow down is a really common thing that you'll see. So again, what's the right pH? I don't know. I want you to tell me. I want you to find out what the pH is in your yard, and I want you to use that to decide what grass you grow, what plants you want to put in, where you want to put blueberries. If you want to put blueberries no matter what, it doesn't mean that you have to go find a home in the sandhills and find a place with a low pH soil. It just means that if you have a pH of, 7 or above, you'll spend a lot of time putting out sulfur. And you could spend a lot of time putting out sulfur, or you could grow your blueberries in a pot and you could put them in pine bark with some peat soil, add an acidifier once, and let that system go. That's kind of the thought there, if that's ringing true. Let me know. We're about halfway through our time. Is there any questions I can answer right now where we're at? Okay, y'all are awesome. This QR code specifically is going to talk to you about the different soil testing options. If you've ever come to our office, at least in the last year, you'll know that we've been like, whoa, we have 2 different kinds. There's all, It can feel chaos. Let us explain it to you. Let this graphic explain it to you. Let us know if you have help. There's different options, but regardless of what option you choose, Master Gardener volunteers can absolutely help make sense of those results. Again, this one would be like, I think you would need, it always looks like chemistry homework to me, is what I like to say. We don't have time to learn another trade. We just want to have a landscape that doesn't cause us issues. We're not going to recommend weed and feed products. That's really the main take home that I want you guys to have from this slide. It's like using a 2-in-1 all the time. There may be times that using a 2-in-1 shampoo is great for me. However, if that's something you want to do, I'd prefer it if you bought the 2 products separately, used them at their appropriate rates for your yard and your system and your goals, and then mixed them together. That's something that a lot of professionals are able to do with the products that they mix at different rates. We can help you figure out a blend like that if that's something you need. But why? Like, why? Why do I not want you to use a weed and feed? Because, do you have an answer? I love it.
Water runoff.
Water runoff. Yeah, that's a great one. We don't need extra fertilizer. The time at which you need a pre-emergent herbicide, it's 2 times of the year. No one goes up to the weeds in your yard and says like, hey, I think it would ruin Lauren's January if you sprouted up all at the same time. Or really, I should say my brother-in-law's January. My brother-in-law texted me last week. What are all these weeds in my yard? Where did they come from? How do I get rid of them? And I agree, it feels like they popped up all of a sudden. But actually what happened is probably like mid-October, nights got cold for 3 days in a row. When that happened, biologically, those seeds knew that it's time to sprout. And so if you can time, and you can, it's tricky, it's not an exact science. The Farmer's Almanac is a great, historic frost dates, freeze dates. That's kind of how you can think of it. But mid-October is what I'm telling you to look for. When nights get cold, that's when I want you to use that pre-emergent. It creates a barrier in your soil system that stops those weed seeds from germinating. Times that I don't want you to use a pre-emergent herbicide is when you lay sod or when you're about to put out seeds for your turf. When you're doing that, when you lay sod, you're wanting to encourage new root growth. But if I put out a pre-emergent herbicide, then I lay sod, I'm also reducing the root growth there. So just when we're thinking about herbicides, even if they're safe for our lawn, safe for our grass, it's still an extra stress. So if we can avoid doing that, we don't need to. October, that's when I said I wanted you to use a pre-emergent herbicide, right? That is not the time of the year that I would tell any of us in this room to fertilize our lawns. And that is, yes, in an FFL sense, in a water safety sense, we do not need any extra fertilizer moving into our water because that's what it's going to do in October. Why? Because your grass is dormant now. It wasn't dormant in October, but if we look around, we see some green, it's been a little bit warm, but we want to encourage that dormancy. Dormancy in that sense is a protection for what's going to happen potentially tonight, for what's going to happen potentially in a week, especially for what happened a year ago when we had snow on the ground for like 36 hours at least. If your grass was not dormant when that occurred, doesn't mean it killed it. The ground is incredibly insulating. It's a big protection for those roots too. It does mean that it was a lot of stress on something that was actively trying to grow. If instead we consider only using a pre-emergent herbicide in October, we let that barrier sit, we stop watering our grass, we encourage that dormancy. The cues for dormancy happen, yes, from the temperature, but they also happen due to the day length, due to the photoperiod, due to something that we have absolutely no control over as humans. or anyone here. So unless you're putting out lights on your plants, that's what we could do in a field. But we're not doing that. So let your grass go dormant or your plants go dormant naturally. If you grow native plants here, you'll notice the same thing in your native plants. Around this time of the year, unless they're protected and warm in a pot or pretty close to your house, a lot of them are not. It looks like they're gone. They're dormant. Maybe you see the sticks from last season still. Maybe you have some little bees nesting in them, but you can't see them. They're protected. Come spring, they're going to come up a lot larger than they would if they were stressed by the cold. Did that make sense? Hopefully it was a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's an important line because letting that dormancy happen, it's a conversation we have a lot at the office, and it feels kind of backwards than what we're used to. But if you let that dormancy happen, now we're here. Now we're in January. Things are popping back up, or your weeds would be popping up. I'm going to have less weeds now, less weed pressure. And come the spring, when my grass is actually waking up, it's going to have less to fight. Those kinds of management strategies, bless you, mean that we're not working against our yard. We're working with it. We just talked about this. We're preventing pollution. Making that tie that.
Lauren, before you get off.
Yes, please.
You wouldn't do the pre-emergent like in March or April?
Oh, that's the second time I'd love you to use a pre-emergent. Thank you for saying that.
Good.
2 seasons of weeds. I appreciate you. 2 seasons of weeds. Our cool season weeds is what I just described in October. The opposite is going to happen and then cue you to put out a pre-emergent herbicide come spring for your warm season annuals. And I won't even touch perennial weeds. I won't even touch herbicide type. Another talk in itself, but just for annual weeds, this is going to be critical. And why? Because they're growing from a seed. Come spring, you can use that pre-emergent after 3 nights where the night temperature is about 70 degrees. When we're warming up, it's kind of the opposite. That cold cue told our cold loving annuals to pop up. This warm cue is going to tell your heat loving annuals to pop up. That's a time when you can use fertilizer too, because our grass needs the fertilizer. And if you're asking me if I'd like to spend a day and a half, well, let's say 30 minutes putting out 1 application of fertilizer in my yard and then another herbicide, I'd rather just do it all at once. I ask my fiance to do it all at once. I don't want to walk those lines twice. You can mix there, but in the cool season is when you absolutely do not want to do it. So you'll hear people say, we don't recommend that combination. And it's because it takes a long time to explain that, but that's why. That's the thought behind it. And then once those weeds come up, if some still do, that's when you can use your post-emergent as needed in small doses. Thank you for that question. Okay, we already talked about mulch a little bit. What I really want y'all to come home with the thought of mulch is that not all mulches are the same, and different mulches may be used for different purposes and different goals. Same thing. It's, everything is based on how you need it to work for you. These are some things that you might be considering when selecting your mulch. And here's some kind of guidelines on how to use it. You'll see that over time, your mulch is going to get a little bit smaller. As it breaks down, that's what happens. Just keep adding more on top. And if you don't want it to look kind of gray and washed out, you can shake it up, move it around a little bit. Same thing works with your pine straw. We don't recommend the use of these mulches in areas that you really want plants to be growing. They're going to do a lot less allowance of oxygen through those layers, and they're kind of going to cover. We don't really want to wrap anything up where it can't interact with its environment. Attracting wildlife. This one is almost a given. Oh yeah, please.
What's the problem with cypress mulch?
That's a great question. And when I read that, I said, I don't know. These are Florida friendly landscape. These are slides that the office made that I'm using. And I genuinely, if I had to guess, I would say that they could be treated with something. Like some of our colored treated mulches, but I will give you an answer because it's already in my queue to look it up after this presentation.
What?
Comment just came up.
Oh, please.
One of the things is that it's harvested
That's exactly what.
unethically.
So similar to why, like you'll hear some people say, like we used to grow blueberries in peat. It is absolutely a process that is regenerate. Like, it's going to regenerate over time, but these are not ecosystems that you can recreate in a greenhouse. These are ecosystems that are involving more of our ephemeral wetland systems. I'm looking at Jessica back there too. Please tell me if I say anything wrong. I'm sorry.
Did we use peat?
We used a little bit of peat. We're not going to use peat on a very large scale. And when I say we, I mean the horticultural industry that pays to purchase peat because it's so expensive to use because it is more rare. And as things get more rare, they get more expensive. It's not feasible to use in a commercial sense because it would make your plants incredibly expensive. It doesn't mean that it's not a very good tool for the things that it's useful for. Keeping an acidic environment, maintaining soil moisture, but it's something that as an overarching recommendation, it doesn't make sense for us to give for probably a lot of reasons, but many things, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be unsustainable. And then continuing that process eventually will not be possible. So learning how to exist with a different kind of system now is what I would say is the goal they're pushing there. And that makes sense. Thank you for that and for our comments online, y'all. I'm going to move through these quicker because I want to leave time for the very end and any questions we have, but we know why we're attracting wildlife. Either we want to deter other wildlife that's using our yard for something, or we want to attract more. My favorite thing to tell people in line of this is like, if squirrels are eating your tomatoes, but they're not eating them, they're just taking like one bite out of them. It's the most frustrating thing. Nothing makes me want to throw a tomato more across my yard. How about you put out some water? See what happens in your yard when the battery is low on here. See what happens when you put out a bowl of water in your yard, and if that changes how animals are using your ecosystem. So think of it like that. How can I make this more of an ecosystem that's for me and for them, or to stop them from doing what they're doing? Because I am not going to go outside and spray hot sauce on my tomatoes. I don't want them to taste like hot sauce. That being said, it's going to provide food for our landscape. You are going to provide food for the insects, for the birds of those insects. Sometimes it's providing like true entertainment. The green lynx spider that lived in my flower garden this past year had her whole season, had her, she scared me. She was huge. She was this big. But I have about 50 photos of her on my phone. That gave me something in the morning while I was drinking my coffee to go look at. It's really enjoyable. You can look at TikTok. Sometimes I accidentally do for more hours, but I feel better when I go outside and I look at the green lynx spider in my yard. And I get nervous if I don't know where she is. I mean, it's insane how you'll notice these little things once you interact with your yard like the ecosystem it is. So you've got water, you've got food for them. Anything you put in your yard is shelter for them. You'll see that with even plastic you have outside. They're going to use it. They're going to find a way to use it. You can provide something that's more useful for them. So think about your yard waste, overwintering material as things that they can use. This might be the last QR code app that we have, but this app specifically is really going to help you hone in on those visitors, increasing the population of them, and what techniques you can use for that. So we've talked about our internal yards as an ecosystem. Something to consider is intentionally making connections across those yards. Sometimes we want to put trees up to not see our neighbors, but sometimes we might want to share a passion flower vine across the fence. They enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's going to spread no matter what because that's the tendency of that native plant. But consider how you and your neighbors can have different habitats that work together. I talked about pests a lot throughout this, and the main thing that I want us to consider is IPM. Who is familiar with IPM strategies and who is not? Okay, easy. I'm sorry.
Integrated pest management.
Oh, incredible. You got the words. Integrated pest management. All that's going to mean is thinking of your pests as a whole. I could go outside and I could spray this mosquito that's right here, but like 30 minutes later, more are going to come in. That's a very basic way to think about it. And that does not mean that mosquito control is not possible via sprays. It just means that we are thinking about the sprays that we're doing, how we're doing them, and when we're using them. Scouting your plants is a good way to find problems before they happen. So yes, my green lynx spider is a lovely, lovely girl to visit in my garden in the morning. But why was I out there anyways? Because I was looking at my plants. That's how I notice that there's some aphids on my zinnias, and I can squish them with my fingers real quick before the problem really gets out of hand. So we really are going to try and avoid those problems. Detecting the problem is absolutely a necessity in order to understand how to control it. That's a requirement. That's another really good way that the Master Gardener volunteers can be helpful at the office. I've included our contact information there. You can call, you can email, you can stop by, but there's not always someone available. So if you really want to see someone, call them, give us a call first. But photos are really important to be able to identify something. Or you can bring us a sample. You can cut it, bring it in, put it in a bag, put it in a jar. We all love looking at bugs under the microscope. We'll be excited about that. Moving through these fast, recycling our yard waste. Just, we can think about my parents. I went home for Christmas. My dad had bagged up like 7 bags of yard waste in plastic and sent it off. And I was like, come on, man, let's put it in the bag. Let's decompose it. Let's see what we can do. It doesn't mean that you have to have a stinky compost pile in your kitchen. Compost piles really aren't stinky, but lots of people are led to believe that they are. I'm going to stop on this one for a second. Palm trees and pruning is a really easy way to add stress to your palms. I'm looking at some, not going to name names. I don't know who cuts those palm trees. Maybe the leaves fell down. However, in a perfect world, we're not trimming our palm trees between 9 and 3. And in a more perfect world, we're not touching a frond until it's completely brown. Those are kind of some hard and fast rules to live by with palms. Again, you could go a whole presentation about them, but if you think about anything about palms after this, I want it to be this one. Keep your grass clippings out of the waterways. Please, please, please blow them back into your yard. I'll tell you a secret. It's fertilizer. It's fertilizer for your yard as it breaks down, which is incredible. It also means that it's fertilizer for the water if you put it in the water. And so that's why we really don't want them in the storm drains. If you put them back into your yard, you're getting that fertilizer back. You probably paid for it. Like, get as much out of it as you can. Why? We're reducing our stormwater runoff again. This is thinking of your nutrients in your yard as what they are going into the water, but also think about those clippings as nutrients as well. I'm looking at all the estuary program people in here to say, if I say something wrong, this is not my area, please tell me and correct it. But our aquifer is really important. If you think about Florida's multiple aquifer systems, just think about it like I don't have my big water bottle with me. I clearly left it at home, but think about it like a Tervis. Florida has got their Stanley tumbler, their Tervis, whatever it is with them all the time, and they pull from it as needed. It also gets recharged, and it gets recharged in all the ways that we've talked about today, into that groundwater, but also into the water that we end up drinking. So yes, this is important for the fish. This is important for people visiting Panama City on vacation because they don't want the algae in their water or the red tide or the blooms. It affects our ecosystem. It affects our environment. Yeah, that's hand in hand. It affects the amount of money some of us rely on for our jobs, for our livelihood, for our industry. And then finally, it affects you and the water that you drink. These are not, oh man, I put down too much fertilizer and now my water is going to be poisoned. This is one of those kind of slow things that we don't see coming. We're used to being prepared for things that we know are going to happen fast, but we can't see the nutrient accumulation. I think some people in this room do research and think about those things and how they stack up on each other. But for now, know that it might not be your direct problem, but it's something that can impact the water that people are drinking in Florida for years to come. And that's really important to me for plants and for many other reasons. Florida's aquifers supply 90% of the state's drinking water. I mean, again, these are different conversations that our friends are having in Colorado. Colorado is a totally different place. This would be a different presentation. But for us in Florida, we rely on our water, and our water is going to rely on us right back. We've talked about all the ways that we can do this. This slide is here for that picture. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. Horrible. It's horrible. No one wants to see that. And again, just because we put out fertilizer bad this one time, that's not us. This is a larger thing. Development takes away ecosystems that used to filter this. We love all the people, though. We rely on people. We rely on development. It's just thinking about the way we do things, using our brains to think about how to set us up for success, rather than using your brain tomorrow morning when you go outside and your philodendron is melted and it ruins your day. There's two different ways you can use your brains in this. And sometimes you don't always get to choose because like weather happens, trees fall down, diseases occur, pathogens happen, but keeping things less stressed is going to reduce those. Okay, I'm moving through these fast. This is a good one to think about too. Plant is a nutrient, the grass cuttings nutrient, your dog's waste is a nutrient too. So keeping those picked up responsibly, putting them in a plastic bag and throwing them away is a great way to reduce the amount of nutrient leaching they can do. Okay, guys, I'll have at least 6 minutes for questions. Here's our contact again at the end. Thank you all for your attention. We got through a ton during this. Any questions on Zoom?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems like since Hurricane Michael, I have had unusual plants and vines coming.
100%.
Driving me crazy.
You know, after a hurricane or after even construction, people will notice this, or farmers when they till a new field, those weed seeds, like we talked about pre-emergent weed seeds, they're always underground. And when something disturbs that much of the ground, uproots trees, those weed seeds can now move somewhere else. And those weed seeds were probably the weeds people were dealing with, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. They were under there. So that's why they might seem new. You'll notice your weeds sometimes come in waves. Like I've got a big problem of it here, a big group of it here. I would say it depends on what they are. So if you focus on, like, the first thing I would do is get them identified. We can help you identify them. Like I use Google Lens all the time as a first route of identification, but those tools are not perfect. They're absolutely going to take some time before they are. So figure out what it is. Will absolutely help you figure out how to control it and how to make sure it doesn't come back. Any other questions from the group?
Torpedo grass.
Torpedo grass. Yeah. I mean, yuck. It is all of these sometimes are a problem based on, like, I'm trying to give an example. Sedges might be somewhere because we're overwatering. Torpedo grass, some of these weeds can offer an indication that something's wrong. I don't know off the top of my head if torpedo grass does. I think sometimes it's just really good at holding on. But again, thinking of it like the framing of what that weed is, its life cycle, and when it's most sensitive is how you're going to be able to kill, and not only just kill it once. Like we can kill something once. I just don't want to see it come back next spring, or really it's going to come back likely, but our goals are that every time we do something about it, it's less of a problem. So if you've got torpedo grass is at 100 and your grass is at 0 because it's suffering because of it, every time we start working on the weed that we're trying to reduce, especially in a system with grass or other things you want to grow, you need to work on, so we tamp down the torpedo grass. Maybe your grass is now to 10. Each time that's going to kind of help that be stronger. But yeah, for specific, chemicals, rotation times, those are things that we can absolutely help with in the office. I just don't keep them all in my head. But it's a great question. Okay, guys. Well, thank you guys. It was really fun to talk to y'all. And any other questions at the end, I'll stick around. And thank you guys on Zoom.
What's the last slide? What is now?
No, we got the drum.
Oh, no, the big, yeah.
And we did.
All right.
Guys,
Are you adjourned? Are we done?
Yes.
I've got
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Lauren, do you want to ask you something?
Yes, we're doing.
Have y'all ever addressed the trash and the ditches on the sides of the roads on like Highway 77? That would be like a county waste